Welcome to another video focusing on XP Classic Jets panels. This time less on the panels, but a little bit more on a little utility for the Felis 747, and that's this thing here, which is Virtual Flight Engineer. And I thought I'd make a very quick video, this time using OBS instead of shots off the iPhone, just to highlight how this works and show you startup of the Felis aircraft. So we're on stand. We're in Barbados. We're at Grantley Adams. This is a custom airport, as the airfield was in whoops, there's disappeared behind the clouds. It must be hurricane season coming up here with the clouds gathering. The airport, as it was in early 1990s, I think since then it's been extended a wee bit further, or the ramp has been extended. The runway's still the same. The runway's long enough. I think 11,000 foot from memory. Used to have great fun there flying a Cessna. Well, it was a Hawk XP. It was a modified Cessna 172 with a souped up engine. Way back in the day when 747s, DC-10s, 727s were all operating out of there, and you could fly sandwiched in between a couple of jets taking off, and immediate left turn as a Eastern 727 blasted off behind you. You got out of the way. I think the only time I actually flew with my dad was once. It's probably hopefully not a reflection on my piloting skills, but it's a Saturday morning, and I thought, well, I'll take him flying around the island. So we flew around the island, and on the way back down the west coast, there was a call on the tower frequency. It was Speedbird 1 Concorde, and it was the first Concorde flight of the Christmas season. I'd completely forgotten about it. Anyway, it was great. Watched him descend down to the right of us, and then I just kept it full throttle all the way around onto approach to keep us close to him, and great view of the aeroplane from above and behind. And the only thing I'd forgotten was that in the intervening time since we'd taken off and flown around the island, it was about 10,000 people had gathered on the roads around the airport. And that the roads, particularly along the south side and off the end of the runway there, just to the west of the airport, that there was just hundreds and hundreds of cars and loads of people there to see Concorde. And there was Concorde landed, taxied off, and there's me and my little Cessna pootling in behind. And I'm thinking, whatever you do, just don't screw up the landing. But anyway, there we go. That's reminiscing from times gone by. So, but this is the airport is set up as it was in the early 90s, and the reason is that I'm building worldwide scenery for the 90s so that I can fly these classic old aeroplanes as they were flown before GPS, before ANA, before all those modern goodies came into being. Enough chat, enough waffle. Let's get on, or as the French say, enough blah blah blah. Here we go. Let's get on with this little program here, which is the Virtual Flight Engineer. So the aircraft is on stand. It's shut down. Engines aren't running. The one thing that I can't control externally, that I have to do inside the sim, is to add ground power and set the chocks. So we'll connect the GPU, we'll set the chocks, we'll close down the EFB, and as if by magic, a GPU cart has been hooked up and the chocks have been hooked up. So we'll jump back into the cockpit now. What this little utility does is act as your flight engineer. So you as the pilot don't have to worry about a multitude of systems and setting things up and doing all sorts of things, you can get on with just flying the aeroplane. And this takes care of it all for you. One of the tasks that the flight engineer had with pretty much every airline, I think, was to set the cockpit up before each flight. So we're cold and dark. Say we've got the GPU, we've got ground power hooked up, we've got the chocks on. So let's go for initial power up. And I'm just gonna let's hide the yoke there so we can see a bit more. And we'll just position the camera a bit. The sound is probably a touch low. You can start to see enunciators going there. I might just let me just increase the sound a bit so that you can hear the switches and you actually know that something is going on. Let's turn that up. And aircraft interior, I think, is that about it? Environmental radios, that's up high. Yeah, let's go with that. There we go. So we can see enunciators are all being tested, and now that initial power up is finished. The overhead panel set up, and of course if you had your full air manager cockpit running, you'd see all of this happening as well. It's all linked, all interconnected. Right, there we go. There's the overhead. Let's go with the overhead panel setup. And as we see this now, we can see there's the sounds come up. I've got a slight bug on this, that the explained sound doesn't come on immediately. There we go. You can start to hear the switches being clicked. That was the INS mode select panels being set to align. And now the flight engineer is working his way around. That was number 3 just being done there. There's the window heat being tested. And I've just built in delays between each switch being selected so that it's more like the real thing. Everything just doesn't happen in one instant. Stall warning test. Well, there's the stall warning test. Going up the center of the panel. Fire test. HF. And now we've got the anti-skid set and the body steering is armed. So the overhead panel is set up. We'll move back to the pilot's panel and let's get that set up. There's instrument tests going on there. It's the horizon test. And the rad alt.
Pull up, glide slope, glide slope.
And that's complete. You see, as everything is completed, the appropriate button turns green. We'll move across to the flight engineers panel and we'll get the APU running. Just click that. Amber means that process is underway. And the APU start switch is engaged. It's just clicked off. Sometimes with these X-plane aircraft you can't hold the switches in place, but the functionality is there. It does what it's doing. So RPM is climbing or building or increasing. And there we go, the APU is now running. set up the flight engineers panel. Let me just zoom it out a bit, and I'll just remove this out of the way so that we can see a bit more of it. Probably lost in a whole sea of switches, but there we go, working with the bleed air at the moment, APU bleed. We can hear it. And that's the flight engineers panel set up. We'll do the before start checks. Sorry, before start actions. And then we're actually ready to start the engines. Let me just whip that back down here. Let's get back outside. Disconnect the camera. Oh, there we go. Not much cargo on board today, or passenger baggage. It's a very empty aeroplane. Okay, so although this is these are actually pilot actions, well, full crew actions. I've set up a little button here so you can just start the engines automatically as well in sequence, and that just allows. Again, it just allows you to get on with other things, and you can do the full procedure if you wish, but if you want a nice easy life, then just use the virtual flight engineer. So we'll click engine start, and let's zoom around here. Which one goes first? Number 4, I think it is. Sorry, that's me going to number 1. There we go. There's engine number 4. Engine number 4 starting, and if I now whiz back into the flight engineers panel,
Fuel on 20% and 2. Lights up.
and there we go, there's number 4 starting to turn.
Starter off. Engine stabilized. Starting engine 1.
Engine number 1 starting. There we go, we can start to see engine number 1 turning. Actually, I should have disconnected the GPU and removed the chock, shouldn't I? But hey ho, health and safety, who cares? And number 1 is now turning.
Starter off. Engine stabilized. Starting engine 2.
There we go. Number 2 starting to spin. And we'll just come over now to engine number 3, which is the last in sequence. There we go, there's the starter going. She's turning. Jump back in the cockpit.
And 2. Fuel on.
Fuel is on.
Lights up. Starter off.
And there we go. There's all 4 engines running. Now, of course, you as the pilot would be
Engine stabilized.
setting up all your own instruments and getting all the nav aids set, all that kind of stuff ready for departure. the INS, getting those set up, everything as well. So the idea of this is just to take away those tasks and make life nice and easy. We do the after start checks, and the other thing we'll do, and this is the beauty of the virtual world, is we can do all of this without any problem at all. And that's we'll disconnect the GPU and we'll remove the chocks. And magically they're gone. So we're ready for push. That could all be, of course, engine start could all be being done while the push is underway. So forget SOPs, forget what you do in the real world. This is just to give you an idea of how that little utility in Air Manager works. A few other bits and bobs on here for setting cruise altitude and departure and arrival airport altitudes, just so the pressurization can all be set up, and then you don't need to worry about that. And then we've got the rest of the flight phases. There's before takeoff, after takeoff, set cruise, and it'll handle all your fuel for you, manage the tanks, descent checks before landing, after landing, and finally when it's time to leave, it'll shut the aeroplane down for you and hopefully leave it in a good state so the next virtual pilots can come along and take it. So I hope you found this interesting. I'm just getting the hang of all this newfangled for me technology, OBS and microphones and all this kind of stuff, and hopefully the next video will expand on the Air Manager setup, show you the panels in a bit more detail, show you them running, and hopefully give you a better idea of what's involved. But thank you for watching. Hope it's been fun, and happy virtual flying.